What if the deadliest killer in history wasn't a war, a weapon, or an empire, but a tiny organism that no one could see, something that traveled silently across continents, hiding inside fleas and ships, waiting for the perfect moment to strike? Long before Europe trembled under the shadow of the Black Death, the world was already whispering signs of an approaching catastrophe. In the early 1330s, traders along the Silk Road began noticing strange disappearances. Entire caravans vanished. Cities in Central Asia reported sudden waves of deaths, with symptoms no physician had ever documented: boils the size of eggs, skin turning ashen black, and fever so high victims screamed in delirium. Historians today believe the first spark ignited somewhere in the wet, rodent-infested grasslands of western China, where the bacterium Yersinia pestis thrived among wild rodents. The disease leaped from marmots to fleas, fleas to rats, and rats to humans. But in the 14th century, no one understood germs. People spoke of demons, poisoned winds, or heavenly punishment. By 1346, the mysterious sickness reached the Crimean port city of Kaffa, controlled by Genoese merchants. The Mongol army laid siege to the city, but something far deadlier than arrows or fire appeared in their camps. Soldiers collapsed by the thousands, covered in dark swellings. In a desperate, chilling attempt to break the city's defenses, Mongol commanders used catapults to hurl the corpses of their infected soldiers over the city walls. The terrified defenders fled to their ships, and knowingly carrying the plague with them. Those ships would soon sail into Constantinople, Venice, Genoa, and Marsalis. Europe had no idea that death was now moving toward it, quiet, invisible, unstoppable.
When the Genoese ships arrived in Italy in October 1347, people at the ports were horrified. Many sailors were already dead. Others were covered in black buboes, swollen lymph nodes that looked like burning coals. The city guards ordered the ships to leave, but it was too late. Rats had already descended the ropes, carrying plague-infested fleas into the streets. Within weeks, the disease exploded across Italy. From there, death traveled faster than any army. The plague raced through France, Spain, England, and the Holy Roman Empire. Trade routes, pilgrim paths, and merchant caravans all became highways of infection. No fortress, no wealth, no religion could stop it. In Paris, bodies piled so fast that grave diggers collapsed from exhaustion. In England, entire villages disappeared. Priests refused last rites. Doctors wore horrifying bird masks filled with herbs, desperately hoping aromatic smoke might protect them. Americans today might imagine pandemic fear, but the 14th century saw something far beyond that. There were no hospitals, no vaccines, no understanding of bacteria. People blamed the stars, minorities, foreigners, or even themselves. The terror wasn't only in the dying, it was in the mystery. Why did some survive? Why did some neighborhoods escape? Was this the end of the world? In 1349, a chilling rumor spread. The plague had crossed into northern Europe and was turning healthy men into corpses in just 3 days. No one knew where to go or how to escape, because in truth, there was no escape. The Black Death had conquered Europe.
If Europe's countryside suffered, its cities descended into pure hell. London, Florence, and Paris, once vibrant centers of trade, became ghostly chambers of disease. Rats swarmed empty markets. Church bells rang endlessly from morning to night, signaling another soul lost. In Florence, chronicler Giovanni Boccaccio wrote of parents abandoning children, friends turning away from friends, and doctors refusing to treat patients because contact almost guaranteed death. Cities tried everything, burning incense, quarantining ships for 40 days, banning travel, fumigating houses with fire, but nothing worked. Bodies filled the streets so fast that mass graves were dug, huge trenches where corpses were layered like loaves of bread. The smell was unbearable. In some towns, carts moved house to house collecting the dead, while monks prayed, sang psalms, and collapsed one by one. And yet, in the midst of horror, some people became strangely fearless. Groups called flagellants appeared, whipping themselves through the streets, believing God demanded repentance. Crowds gathered to watch them bleed. But the greatest fear was not death, it was the unknown. Was this punishment? Was it magic? Was it the end of civilization? One thing was clear: Europe was being changed forever.
Centuries later, scientists finally uncovered the truth behind what terrified the medieval mind. The Black Death was caused by Yersinia pestis, a microscopic bacterium carried by fleas, rats, contaminated air droplets. There were actually 3 types of plague. 1. Bubonic, painful black buboes. 2. Pneumonic, attacked lungs and spread person to person. 3. Septicemic, entered bloodstream, causing death in hours. Modern experts estimate that 25 million Europeans died, about 1/3 of the population. But what made it unstoppable? Because medieval Europe was the perfect environment for plague. Overcrowded cities, poor sanitation, flea-infested homes, rats everywhere. Cold weather pushing rodents indoors, no antibiotics. Every factor created a perfect biological storm. But the most shocking discovery: DNA evidence suggests the original plague strain was incredibly aggressive, far more lethal than modern versions. Nature had created one of the most powerful killers in human history. When the Black Death finally loosened its grip, Europe was unrecognizable. With so many dead, labor became scarce. Serfs demanded better wages. Landowners begged workers to return. Many historians argue the Black Death helped end feudalism itself. Other major changes included medicine began moving towards science, not superstition. Peasants gained social mobility. The Catholic Church's absolute power weakened. Art turned darker, focusing on death and human fragility. Trade networks shifted. Entire towns disappeared. Survivors inherited wealth, accelerating the rise of the middle class. Some scholars believe the plague indirectly paved the way for the Renaissance, the age of exploration. The modern economic system, in other words, out of unimaginable tragedy came the foundation of the modern Western world. Even in the US today, echoes of Black Death-era social shifts remain in our economic and medical systems. The Black Death didn't vanish overnight. It retreated, then returned multiple times for centuries. So, why did it finally stop? Historians point to several key reasons. 1. Improved hygiene and urban planning. Cities began paving streets, removing waste, and controlling rodent populations. 2. Quarantine became a formal system. The word quarantine comes from 40 giorni, 40 days. Ships were isolated, travelers monitored, and infected areas sealed off. 3. Rodent populations changed. The black rats that loved living with humans were gradually replaced by brown rats that avoided contact, interrupting the flea-human cycle. 4. Medical advances. Although antibiotics didn't exist yet, early scientists began understanding contagion. 5. The plague mutated. Genetic evidence suggests the bacterium weakened over generations. By the 18th century, the Black Death faded from Europe. It still exists in small pockets today, including in the US Southwest, but now it's treatable with antibiotics. Humanity survived one of the deadliest events ever recorded. But the question remains: if something so small could nearly wipe out the world once, could it happen again? The Black Death is a reminder that history's greatest threats are sometimes the ones we cannot see.